All right, everybody, away we go. Welcome to today's call. It is Friday, that fabulous day of the week where we do sales training here at the TRC. So this is the TRC sales training, and it is Friday, July the 6th of 2018, and it is hard to believe that half of a year is toast. It's gone. So whatever you were working on for the first half of the year, it's over. And we need to be diligently pushing through the summer. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that I see agents make is they let up in the summertime. I know it's too hot in the desert. I know people are at the beach in the east and the north. I get it. But people are still talking business. Deals still go down. And you can't let up and make those sales excuses that people make. Yes, you might not be able to get as much done when it's too hot, and the beach is an alluring alternative, but it is true that people are still seriously consider buying and selling right now. In fact, right before the sales training call, I just got a call by somebody who said, hey, let's go. I also got another one that said, hey, my folks are living in a camper and I need to get them into a house. Tell me the details before I make the offer on yours. So this is really happening right now in spite of the fact that it is sweltering in this office. We have a failed AC system and trying to put a new one in. So it is the equivalent of being in the desert, doing coaching and training. So I appreciate you joining me here today. Now, over the last several weeks, what we've done is we have followed an agenda to try to stick to hitting these beats. Now, we've had the team over in Ottawa that's been very, very helpful. And if they come in today, if they have anything else, they can send me some updates. But it became acutely obvious to all of us that as we went through the training week after week, we were able to pick up on some subtleties. And one of the major subtleties is there's always the battle between scripting and not scripting. I would rather you were scripted or following beats before you ever try to do it by the seat of your pants. Because when you try to do things on muscle and you try to sell on the phone especially, you will lose. In the long run, you might win a few of the short run ones, but you will lose in the long run because people are trying to understand, number one, why are you bothering them? Why are you involved in this phone call with them and bothering them to begin with? You know, that's an issue for those people. So you really have to be cognizant of the fact that you are an interruption. So as you interrupt them, you have a very small window of time to tell them why you're doing so, right? Why is this happening? Why are you jumping in on these people and interrupting their lives? So I think it becomes very, very important to make sure that you get a quick intro. Hey, it's me. And I'm bothering you because. And because is a key trigger word. Again, because is a formulaic word that triggers a conversation going on in somebody's mind. And you have to recognize that. It's important to recognize that. All these little subtleties you want to learn, and I've referenced in the past, I think you should be learning from the greats in influence, like Robert Cialdini's book, Influence. Go read it. Go understand where I got that from, and understand that I'm constantly doing homework to try to figure out how to help myself and subsequently all of you more so. It's very important to always be a student of sales and real estate in general so that you are being intentionally professional, okay? A professional phone call or a professional introductions, when you're face-to-face, they go through a very organized formula. If you look at some of the greatest speakers in the world, you might think, oh, what a natural. Not so much. I mean, sure, there are some natural walking around conversationalists, but the smartest speaker, teachers in the world that I've ever run into, they are wildly formulaic and where they're at. They are acutely aware of time. And that's a pet peeve that I have. As I was watching somebody today in Whole Foods and I was waiting for a drink and I was watching this gal and her daughter and it was just like she was oblivious to everything that was around her. She walked up to the spot where you take your drink from. Then when she went to the other end to pay, she came back and the straws were standing right in front of her and she said, where do I find the straws? I mean, I get it if somebody's having a bad day, you can make that excuse. But if it's us in the context of business, shame on us for being so unaware of the moment that we're in. And when you're in sales and you're putting yourself intentionally into a moment, the fact that you come in underprepared, shame on you. Shame on you. So my job is to help prepare you for that moment so that you're not unawares, so that you're not ordering from the pickup line. And I used to see that way back in the day in my first corporate job when I was working in venture capital. I went bananas working for the first guy that I had. He would get in a phone call with somebody and he would be so unaware of the social cues and the verbal cues that somebody was giving. You need to practice being aware of what the other side is saying. And then you hang on to these strategies so that you are in full professional control of the direction and the outcome, okay? So there's my little preamble from the soapbox on a hot day here on Cape Cod. I'm going to get right after this. Let me see who I have in with me early. And I'm willing today to go into more of a Q&A mode because it's been very instructional. But I want to keep the focus more so on when you ask me a question. The way that my brain now processes it as a strategic thinker is I'm going to think about where in the process of a sale, of a conversion, are you? Where are you in that moment in time? I'm going to ask myself that. And then when I respond to you, I'm going to give it that context in my answer, okay? So here we go. I'm going to open up the lines. Remember, *6 me if you're in a noisy spot. Otherwise, I have to do it for you, and babysitting's not my profession, all right? All right, so here we go. Who's up first? Somebody give me a thought or a challenge, and let me give it some context, and let's look for a strategic approach that might be better. Give me something that didn't go your way. Clara, I see that you're in here, so I'll take you. Oh, go ahead, Patrick. You're up. You spoke.
I just had one just based on some calls that we've had recently, and based on kind of your opening, too, which is, because I think a lot of times what people run into is, you're in a great conversation with somebody on the phone, and you can tell that they're kind of trying to get off the phone, but at the same time, you've got a job to do, right? And you've got information that, is going to help you help them.
Right.
How it's like, it's finding that balance, right, between like how hard do I push to get what I'm looking for from this prospect versus, I also don't want to put them off and becoming like, could you kind of like
absolutely, yeah,
let's just say Laura to be
in
that realm?
Well, absolutely. First of all, let's just say that as I was listening to you ask me the question, what I was thinking is, and I know personally training you to play this new role with Paul, I'm hoping that you're asking it from the perspective of you. Are we talking about you, or are we talking about you in a coaching context?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't gotten started yet, but I mean,
yeah.
Definitely appeals to me.
Well, I'd like to go there with you only because I know you so well, and as your role morphs out of more of just manager and more into this conversion module where you're playing a role similar to Lara, it really goes all along the process of conversion. So a contact is a contact is a contact, as we've said thousands of times. Let's leave marketing aside for the moment, but your marketing needs to speak a certain language too, and that's consistent with what you're trying to say. So again, we talked about in the mastermind yesterday that the positioning of a strategic professional is what the industry, quite frankly, should be upping its game to go there. But then it's like, okay, once we have all those strategies and those frameworks that we teach, great, now what? Because now there's the reality of the moment. We just went from theoretical framework. Hey guys, we're live. Hello. Come on now, we're live. *6 is me if it's loud where you are, okay? *6 me, mute your mic, because he's asking a really good question here. So *6 me, don't talk in the background unless you're *6'd up, please, he said. Thank you. All right, so Patrick, when you look at that now, you say to yourself, okay, so the deal is, I have this personality type, and my natural inclination, I'm talking generically now, yours, mine, ours, our natural inclination is to sell the way that we want to be sold. Why? That is our perception of the way the world works. Our lens that we see everything through is the way that the world works according to what our perception is. But in reality, it's quite different. And the brain has to do that because it has to give context to things. Otherwise, you'll be looking at wild chaos without context. So as you look out at that world, you see it. In what personality type are you? Let's start with you. What personality type are you?
It's been a while, but high I, and then definitely some C, high C as well.
Okay, well, very interesting combo, by the way.
Where I
Yeah, But it's a very interesting combo, because the fact that you want to influence and be liked while you're doing it, but yet you're trying to be extremely compliant, is a really fascinating juxtaposition. So let's talk about that. So the first thing that Patrick, let's talk to his eye first, because you mentioned it. If a high eye gets on the phone or face to face, the inclination is to just go, right? Oh my gosh, what a great house. We have a great opportunity, blah, 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 blah. And we go. Take it from one who has plenty of high I in him, but alternatively, I have D. And what I've learned to do is rely on that D, which, by the way, behaves a lot like C. So in the DISC personality profile, after 20 plus years of doing this, what I've come to recognize is that D's and C's can behave similarly, and I's and S's, okay? So those tend to cross over a little bit more easily. So just identifying that alone helped me a lot to say, well, geez, C's really want to hear much more of that detail. And I don't mean a lot of it, especially if it's early on or in the house. You don't want to go too far because they become suspicious. And D's, they want the organization, they want the structure, but boy, you better deliver it quickly and articulately or they will cut your tongue out. Right? So understanding the way that each personality behaves, and in a quick summary, D's, you better be clear as to why you're good at what you do and cut to the chase. I's, similar, but you can go into a little bit more detail, but do not let them throw you off your agenda. S's, as long as you're following those methodologies, 7 points, 6 points, and you can have them move along, and it's a Q&A and they're interactive, you're good there. And ultimately the C is you're pausing more so, a little bit more than an S, you're pausing more and asking them, do you have a question about that, right? Am I answering your questions? So I would say in a quick recap, that's what it is. Now, how the heck do you become aware? In my preamble, you're right. I said I just was going bananas today, watching this gal at Whole Foods just like be completely out of sorts, ordering at the wrong window, going the wrong place. And that happens a lot on the phone, especially with inside sales. It sounds like chaos. Everybody is out of order. So it becomes very critical, especially when you're on the phone first, and I'll deal with outside sales in a minute, to listen for how they react. Now, we've had 3 or 4 weeks of live sales training where we played those real live calls. And I can remember one gal very clearly was very, very high I. She was bubbly. She didn't want to interrupt. She wanted Pat, or I can't remember whose call it was, Pat or Dave, to like her. You could just tell. Kids were in the background and she was kind of giggling, but she was stressed. So as she got more stressed and the kids in the background were saying something, her high I was going up more. She was talking more. She was getting more bubbly, because under stress, now watch this very closely, under stress, we revert to our natural personality type. So when you pick up the phone and you interrupt somebody's life, they're going to default most likely, most of the time, to their natural personality type. So listening early on, you get, and it'll be more subconscious because it happens so quick. It's really your subconscious that's processing it with the lightning speed, not your conscious mind. And I think that's why when we get over-scripted and too conscious, what did he just say? No, just sit back. Hey, it's Danny Griffin calling for the Griffin Realty Group. The reason I'm calling is because my reason. Pause. And their reaction will tell you a lot. Yeah? Hi, D. Oh, yeah, okay, I think I've seen your signs around. S. Oh, okay, and is there something else? S. You know what I mean? I'm making it up to try to give you a more typical response based on a personality type, so at least something in your head triggers. This is a D, and they hate my high I. Yeah, they hate my high I if I let my high I go off. So it's just a quick beat that when we're structured, we get there. Now, in the house or in the field with a buyer, irrelevant. The first time we go there, one of the reasons to sort of let them have process in the beginning, meaning what? On the first house with the buyer, don't overdo it with them. Let them go in. A lot of times I'll actually lay back and let them introduce themselves to the other agent. I know it seems a little bit weird, but that's what I let them do. I want to see how they go in pursuit of this property. What is their body language? This is, certainly if I'm with them for the first time, I'm letting them have their process. Similarly, in a house, when I ask for the tour of the house before we sit down and talk about a strategic approach, I'm looking for personality type. Oh, you take them. Oh, she'll take you. Okay, there's the high D, obnoxious guy sitting in his rocking chair, right? So you can see from all of that orchestrated language, body movement and everything, what are you dealing with? Because it's important, and stopping short of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, that talks a lot about mirroring behavior and all that. Personally, I think it's too much. I think a lot of us do it just naturally anyway if we're well-met people, meaning we can meet other people and get into a conversation relatively easily. If not, maybe you want to study that type of stuff. But for me, I just feel like if I just have that breath moment to hear them on the phone or to see how they behave, I can then now approach the rest of my strategic questioning to match that, the speed, the tenor, whatever it might be. Questions about that, Pat, so far?
No questions, really. It's just kind of reinforcing sort of my own thoughts about it, which is just, let your own instincts kind of guide you, because I think I know I've got a pretty strong ability to read somebody and decide, is this person ready to actually talk about real estate? Are they not ready to talk about it? And then kind of mimic wherever they're coming from with your own sort of approach to the call. Just if they're in a hurry, wrap it up really quick. If they want to talk, let them go and take some notes maybe and put them into Infusionsoft, etc. So yeah, I think it's good to reinforce this stuff though, just because I think it is easy to forget when you just pick up the phone and start dialing.
Well, Patrick, what would be wear two caps with me here? What would be your biggest worry about doing it yourself properly, per se? Because that's what we're all worried about. Everybody's worried about going in and saying something stupid, right? What would be your own worry for yourself? And then subsequently, what you would be hoping and really trying to bring to your agents who are doing inside and outside sales as their trainer. What are you worried about that could go sideways?
Well, my biggest worry, I suppose, would be time management and being able to automate myself out of a lot of parts of my current job, but to make room for this new arena that I'll be getting into.
Yeah.
That's one worry. And then secondarily, maybe just burning out. I've seen so many people burn out making calls, and I've never really committed to doing it as a real part of my profession. So, I don't think I'll know until I roll up my sleeves and jump in.
Yeah. Well, I think let me grab that chunk. Hold on. Let me grab the burnout for a second. Let me grab that. Because I think it's sort of a white elephant in the room that should be broached. Laura brings it up often. I know a lot of times when the mastermind members are trying to hire help for somebody who prospects, there's always that presumption that is a high burnout, high turnover situation. The truth is, business in general, if we look at small business, I could make the case for small business being big time burnout, right? Why? Because the failure rate's massive. Why? In my opinion, as a small business coach in the context of real estate, I simply believe it's because people aren't following a plan, right? So nobody ever endeavors to go in search of at least a basic plan that would give this some structure. So I think that when you're looking at call follow-up, as a segment, let's call it inside sales / prospecting. Without that, there is no funnel, right? You're hoping, and hope is no business plan. So the presumption is we get burnt out. Why? Why do you presume we get burnt out? You stay in the hot seat with me. Why?
Yeah, because it's due to a lot of rejection.
Sure.
And just feeling like you're spinning your wheels and not getting anywhere.
So rejection is certainly demoralizing. And who wants to make a living being demoralized on a regular basis, right? So, but again, I have a hunch. I'm not saying this in an absolute statement. I have a hunch that we can lower the burnout feeling and the rate subsequently if we step back for a second and we ask ourselves, well, how did we go at it? See, I think if you bring yourself into sales with this presumption that you're supposed to be proactively selling something, I think it's a mistake, okay? And I think the internet has begun to force us to prove that through the context of content marketing. The concept of having to give away your best stuff for free. Saying to the world, look, I have a professional strategic approach and this is what it is. This is what to do. Now choose me or not, I want to position myself that way. So it comes down to something similar as a marketing concept. As a salesperson, on the phone or in the house or in the field, how are you positioning yourself before you open your mouth? I think that's something that I haven't really emphasized in coaching, and I need to, is that if I get on that phone or you hire somebody to do it, no matter what, if I'm asking you to do it or you're hiring somebody to do it, here's what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that you pick up the phone as a resource. Not as a salesperson, but as a resource. Now, we've tried to brainwash the group into this concept of concierge desk, meaning at a concierge, right, if that's the French pronunciation, it's a gift from the hotel of service. That's what it is. So we have this pay-for structure that we walk into, but immediately there is this gift of free information and guidance. That's what it is. And that's why I brought it into the fold here and said, look, why don't we just start off owning that first? Let's be that person who otherwise might, Patrick, get rejected if there was a sense from the folks coming through the front door that they wanted something in return. Now, obviously, the hotel, our experience, we know they want our money in return. We know they want us to spend some dough on towels and, at the pool, bar, whatever it is they're going to be. We get it. We get the context within which we're going. But a great 5-star, 6-star, and if there is such a thing, hotel, doesn't make you feel that way. They almost bring it into a whole, the Ritz was known for this for years. Nordstrom's was known for this for years. That when you walked into these places, albeit you knew they were in a business, you felt like they were in some other category all unto themselves. Because it was their positioning in those industries. You following me?
Yeah, for sure.
And you have to own that. Well, go ahead. What did you say? What was that word you said?
Perception.
I don't agree. Yeah, I don't agree.
Okay.
Well, the perception would be their reaction. Yes. So I would agree with that.
I think that's by accident. I'm not saying that,
Sure.
I think that you have to work to cultivate a certain perception that you are of luxury, like Nordstrom or the Ritz.
Oh boy, do you ever. Oh boy, do you ever. But I'm not even going to luxury. I'm going to service. Before we can even get to that layer, I think what I'm trying to demonstrate, and it works both in marketing as a concept, and it works both in sales. And I think it should come first. What position do I want to establish for myself? Okay? What is my position? It's similar to the concept of unique selling proposition. Okay? It's similar. They blend a little bit if you follow me, and that's why I'm slowing it way down today, is that as we listen to those calls over the last 3 or 4 weeks, okay, I think what we heard early on in the first week was a positioning as an aggressive appointment setter. And by week 3, what happened was the positioning was beginning to change. That we are a strategic professional. And those guys and gals up in Ottawa have already changed the nomenclature. They've actually already told what used to be an inside sales force that they are something different. Okay? That they are really customer service agents looking to serve. Now, that's no easy thing. That's like telling the guy who needs to go to the gym and work out a little bit, oh, you're thin now. It doesn't quite work like that without some conditioning and training. So it takes some time. And I would almost recommend that every time a call is made, it's just a quick positioning click in the head. I am the concierge desk here to serve these people. regardless of whether they need it, want it, or not. So, Patrick, now think, have you ever been to a hotel with a concierge desk?
Yeah.
Okay, can you see it in your mind's eye? Are you clear? I have one.
Yeah.
I have one that I can see very clearly. When I used to go to Toronto, I can see them over to the right-hand side. And it was a mixture. It wasn't just the concierge desk. It was a mixture of the bellman who also had this attitude. And when I first was going to Toronto, I didn't know anybody. So I would go to this hotel, and I love hockey. And I was in the mothership, and you could walk 2 blocks up the street to the mothership in Toronto and watch hockey. I was ecstatic. So I just happened passing saying, is it easy to get tickets? I can get you one, no problem. What do you need? And it was boom, just like that. I was sitting in the front row at a playoff game, right? So I remember that. And I don't remember it as a hotel. I remember it as a different experience. But it had to do with the way that they position themselves, right?
Right.
Okay. Jump in here with us, the rest of you. Dean, I heard you out there a little bit. Lee, I know I've got you out there a little bit. Talk about positioning a little bit and how it relates. And Sarah, if I have any of the gang from Ottawa, I'd like to hear now that this is a little bit more instructional this week versus listening and then reacting, because I still want to do that today. What are your thoughts as you all listen to this? Any of you? Anybody that's on the call? Amazing. You're all deaf mutes? Come on, let's go. Anybody that's on the call.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
had to run and hit the unmute button.
Yeah, good.
I love the direction you're going, and we've talked about it in the past where concierge, the concept of concierge is the right thing, but, I've always had an issue with that word in inside sales. I've always looked at it and said your client services coordinator, your customer service coordinator, something like that, where they give you, where we can entitle or enable our staffs to look at it and say, my job is not to convert sales. Converting sales is a byproduct of me doing my job.
Right.
And my job is to create conversations and opportunities to talk and engage with people. And if you get the high D like me, what do you want? Give it to me quick. I'm going to go and just keep moving on. That doesn't mean it's a no. It just means either no, not right now, or you're not selling me in a way that I want to be sold.
Yeah. Do you agree with me?
I literally just walk up into a barbecue store. I'm like, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, do you agree with me on that concept of burnout, that burnout might have a lot to do with positioning? I mean, are we on to something there?
I highly agree with it. I think some personality types are more prone to burnout.
Yeah.
I think depending on the secondary, what you are secondarily, I think the high Ds tend to not burn out as quickly because more often than not, we just treat it as if they're not saying no to us, they just don't care, and therefore I don't care, move on next.
Yeah.
I think the high D personality can churn better than most of them.
Yeah.
But like you said, an I is going to take it personal, and S is going to take it personal, and a C is going to try to figure out the math why they said no.
Yeah.
So I think when you're dealing with primarily high I and S personalities, you have to deal with sensitivity and emotion. Whereas when you're dealing with a D or a C, there's less emotion involved.
Right.
I walk into a barbecue store, I tell them what I want, and I don't care what the price is. Tell me what my options are. I'll go from there. I was in and out of the place in 20 minutes.
All right, so let's create a persona for the ideal real estate salesperson, presuming that we have to do both jobs. Presuming that you can't lay this off as, let's go away from the mastermind group, okay, for a second, and let's go to an idealistic approach to this, because that should be the foundation for everything. In an ideal situation, who is the ultimate person in real estate sales that can handle both the inside sales, aka the prospecting, the creation of a prospect, and follow up subsequently to become a client, and then the in the field person? What's the perfect prototype for that?
Someone who's very, very self-aware, has the ability to be a chameleon, and knows the difference between when it's time to yell, when it's time to get yelled at, when it's time to cry, and when it's time to make someone else cry.
Okay, so aware. Okay, well, it's close. I think it's awareness of all the personality types and the fact that we're going to default to our own under pressure, which this is. Business is pressure. That's what it is, and we default.
I've been off.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been off. Yeah, I've been off the personality profile kick for a while because it seems to have gotten kind of pushed to the curb a little bit. I didn't want to overstep my bounds all too often. But I still think the key is anybody can become a chameleon. It doesn't have to be an actor or anybody who truly understands that personality profiling system and just knows the signs to look for, and has some empathy and is a little bit self-aware, can say, okay, this person wants to be coddled. Let me coddle him. This person is quiet. He's not mean. He's just a breath.
Yeah, and doesn't that require?
Get people to understand that. It's a huge thing.
Yeah, doesn't that require certain humility?
Without a doubt.
Okay.
I say empathy, self-awareness, and humility, all of that. Listen, I can be the most humble person in the world, but a lot of these people know me. I can also be the biggest pain in the ass out there.
Yeah.
But I'm the easiest sell in the world if you get me from point A to B without having to make me zigzag back and forth.
Yeah. Presuming
I'll pay more for something somewhere else if they give it to me the way that I want it.
Yeah. Presuming also that you have context, that this matters. See, Patrick, coming back to you, I think the problem with a lot of sales in real estate is that we want what we want. So all this coaching training out there that's being perpetuated teaches people, well, you just get on the phone and you just prospect the whole neighborhood and you just do this and it's a numbers game. And that's a different positioning to start. And look, my buddy Paul Mihalowicz and I, we talk about this a lot. As you lean into those moments where you're being taught to go boots on the ground, it will work. Eventually, it is a numbers game for all of us, no matter what position you have. But I think that's the kind of mentality and position that you just eventually run out of gas. And I'm not so sure you built anything unless you were cognizantly building a book of business that takes care of referrals and builds it along the way. Otherwise, you just did tasking your entire career. Hopefully, you kept the money. But the point, I think, is that self-awareness is first. And that self-awareness gives you worldliness awareness. So in other words, I'll keep going back to this gal today. I just want to grab her by the lapels and say, tell me you're having a bad day because it's bugging me that you are just all over the place in this place. Like you're at the wrong end of this, you're at the wrong end of that. What is it? Is it something going on in your life? I can accept that. But man, you are just clueless. And it warmed me up for today's call because I would say to you all, don't be clueless. There's zero reason to be clueless. You have context when you're doing something. Now, that doesn't sound like it's too humble coming out of my mouth like that, but it is. Because I'm saying, look, I am almost the equivalent. I was watching this thing, The Horn, about Matterhorn rescues. Guy falls down into a crevasse and how they save him. You have this emergency sense that you have to help these people. Buyers, sellers, and if you're a recruiter listening to this call, agents, you're coming at them with what to do, the proper what to do. It doesn't mean that they have to do it exactly that way, that they personalize it. Look, when in Toronto, here's what to do. You want to see Yonge Street. If you like hockey, you want to see a hockey game. You want to go to the Hockey Hall of Fame. There's things that are what to do. And I know that if some clueless knucklehead from Boston walks out the front door of my hotel and he starts to meander, he might end up all the way down the waterfront, nowhere near the Hockey Hall of Fame. So if I get some context, I can give him at least free guidance on what to do. That's awareness. That's awareness of your world, that you're in this business world, you're in this real estate world, and you know the context, and you are there to dive into the crevasse and save somebody from doing something incorrectly. That's a positioning. And you see my enthusiasm when I express it to you all. I believe in my positioning. So if you don't believe in your positioning, when you pick up that phone, it will become acutely aware to the trained ear on the other side. This is somebody that's completely lost in the Whole Foods juice bar, right? That's what it will sound like to somebody, albeit subtle. So when we listen to those calls over the last couple of weeks, you could hear these guys being off a little bit. They were lost too because they were rambling. They were just going on, and they weren't sticking to a structured beat. Look, here's where you order. Here's where you pick up. Here's where the straws are. If you want to drink it at the bar, sit there and drink it at the bar. When you're done drinking, here's the recycle bin. Here's the exit out the door. That is an intentional walkthrough of a juice bar. So it's no different from a sale. There's an intentional walkthrough. Sure, maybe I bump into a couple of people in line. Maybe I'm trying to squeeze through to get my drink. Maybe my drink comes out wrong. All those things can go wrong and throw you off. But I think, Dean, Patrick, I think as long as we understand where we are in the process, what context we have, what I'm dealing with on the other side. If I have somebody that's trying to serve me on the other side and they're lost, I'm likely to get frustrated too, right? So I think that's the key here, is that context matters. So let me hear some more from you guys about that. Kate, I know you're out there too. So Kate, on my team, if you want to weigh in on this a little bit too, I'd like to hear from somebody on my team and anybody else that wants to join this discussion. Danny Northcutt, Georgie Moutart, love to hear from you guys today too. Thoughts here?
On that inside sales.
Go ahead, Grant.
Go ahead.
Grant, go ahead.
But I just wanted to, going back to the ideal person and the traits and the letters on the disc wheel, I think for me, it's patience. For Katie and I, it's patience. I mean, when calling and communicating with prospects, lead prospects, even clients, it's the patience and knowing that there is a pipeline and knowing that the future will come. It's going to take a year for some of these people to reach out to us, and we'll continue to make our, quarterly calls, monthly, whatever it might be. So we put patience at the top of the list.
Now, Grant.
I just want to throw that in.
Oh, no, hold on. I think you hit something really important here. I've got a question for you. So, why are you patient now? Because let me ask a better question. Were you always patient?
No.
Okay. So
no, I think the patience kicked in about a year and a half ago, and it was the patience came from seeing that the system and the processes work, and that we have some great material to share with. Aside from properties and MLS and whatever we're doing, materials in education to share with.
So I can back you into a corner, and you would agree with me the same way we became patient, because as you said that, I began to become more patient with Laura too. And we are not naturally patient people, right? So Laura and I have, I think my I is maybe one notch above my D, but they're both pretty high, 10 and 11. So that much D in me and her primary being D, patience isn't a virtue for a high D personality type, right? So how do you get it? Mm-hmm. As a manager of my business, understanding that something was wrong, that you can't keep doing that as a salesperson, you need to become intentional about a process for sales, right? When we focused on a conversion module to bring consistency to the business, that book of business. Now remember, if somebody's listening to this for the first time, it's not about technology, about the process. Where are my prospects? People engaged in buying and selling conversations with me. Where are my clients? And where are my past clients that I can continue to talk to so that they would refer and repeat? If I had a rookie in front of me, I'd say that's the essence of being able to establish patience, because if you don't take a heartbeat to establish some sense of a sales pipeline, you get nervous, you get anxious, you get what? Pressure. And under pressure, you default to what? Your natural personality type that is, in accelerated, pressurized moments, something that babbles on, something that gets paralyzed by the C, something that gets so wide-eyed that they can't even move in the S, screams at everybody as a D, whatever. It's just not good. We're out of balance, but it's not because of who we are. It's because of what we won't do. We just refuse to sit still, work on a business pipeline that we can see into that gives us that comfort level. Well, you know what? This deal looks like it's going south. But the good news, I'm not chips all in on only that deal. I don't have one deal-itis because I'm also subsequently working with two other people. We've written a couple offers. So let's be patient. This guy that's really blowing up, let's meet with him face to face. Let's calm him down. Let's not make him feel our pressure that we're feeling. Let's make him calm so that we don't lose him in entirety. Chris Egan told me today he's at a rough string right now. He's got 3 deals that are either blowing up or fall apart. I said, well, cool. Where'd they come from? What are you doing on each one? Are they recoverable? And, 1 or 2 of them are certainly recoverable. One, the gal's hiding under a rock. Maybe she comes back, maybe she doesn't, but he did all the right things. That is the patience that comes from only knowing that you're intentional about building a pipeline that's always supplying who's next, Grant. Would you agree with all that?
Absolutely.
But why did it take so long, though? Why for us to see it? Is that, let me lead the question a little bit, is that what required patience in the beginning? Trust that there's a better way to do business than just doing it on muscle. Talk to that, because I think this is a critical component of the discussion for everybody listening.
Yeah, well, I think for us, the key was the Infusionsoft or CRM, just to make sure the tags are being applied and that those calls would happen in cadence. So just trusting that, we had some issues. So once we got to trust that, and then we were, making some sales and everything, we just kind of gave into the process, said, all right, let's just continue what we're doing. Paychecks will come. We don't have to be impatient thinking, oh boy, what's going on here. We still have our highs and lows. We certainly do. But trust in the system and being patient.
Yeah.
And then you and I spoke 2 weeks ago. It's communicating not only with the co-brokes but with clients, and even the smallest details require a phone call or communication. So the deal doesn't blow up. We have to blow up because I'll put it on me. I didn't make a call quick enough.
Yeah.
And that's everybody in the history and done deal. So I've been super on it.
Do you find yourself leaning in more so to the problems or not?
I do now.
Yeah. See, I do. And the reason I said that is because I do. There was a long time there during the recession, and while I was building out this formulaic approach, that, your nerves are frayed. You're trying, and I get this for all of you, you're trying to make a better living regardless of the circumstances right now. That's why I'm here. That's why I spend this time, especially slow it down this week. Let's just talk a little bit about process for a salesperson. The answer. And by the way, on the board behind me, for those of you, if you want to go back and watch the replay on Facebook, I always broadcast it live on our TRC sales page to give it away. It's the what to do. But one of the most important things, Grant, is how does this relate to the money? I mean, let's not, any salesperson needs to make X amount of money. But I think the intentionality doesn't come as easily unless you're clear about that.
Well, that'd be it.
Right? So I think you have to be very clear about that intentional direction. It's the North Star, Grant, right? So if you have a North Star of, let's just say the average agent sells $35,000, $40,000 in most marketplaces based on what the real math is, okay? That's the average agent, okay? Part-time job. Then there's a lot of people that want to get their first 100. Then there's people that want to see 250, 500, a million, multi-millions. That's sort of, as a coach, those are the tranches that I see out there. And so I think everybody's so embarrassed to start wherever they're at, Grant. And I think that's why it becomes so, unintentional, is because you hear something, and the worst line in the world to use around me is, I'm not there yet. Okay? Well, what does that even mean? That's the defeatist positioning. Okay? Because we're talking about positioning here today as a salesperson. That's the defeatist positioning that kills this industry. I'm not there yet. Well, what is there? Did you tell me that you want to be there at 250,000, 100,000, 65,000? What did you tell me? Where? Where are you even referencing? And that's that lack of awareness, right? Again, back to this poor gal that I keep picking on today. Shows up at Starbucks and walks right into the pickup. It's obvious that that's the pickup. There's no cash register. There's all sorts of, extras for your drink. No, it's down here. Like, where? You're not there yet because you're just not being aware of the basics of something. Admit to yourself where you are really. That's the greatest launching spot ever. Say, I want to be at this, and then I will help you say, well, great. That's a good, decent stretch goal. And we do that at all levels of production. If somebody says to me they're doing $1 million gross with a team, and they say they want to be 2, I say, hey, that's reasonable. Because they're at a point where they can scale revenue faster than somebody who's at a 50 and says, I'm going to do $1 million. I've heard that before, by the way. Okay? So I think that North Star is the first personalized piece of the positioning that you can have that says, look, I have a goal of a reality of this income, gross. Forget about net, that gets into management and everything else. But gross, my North Star is out there somewhere. And I'm going to set it way out there. And I'm going to say, I want that thing. And the only way that I'm going to get to that thing is to do something intentionally each week to achieve that goal. So Grant, I think, that becomes a big deal. that getting that financial goal, and that's why in the mastermind level yesterday I spent a lot of time talking about getting that financial goal inside the marketing mind map, because the choices that come from that, if I want to do X hundreds of thousands of dollars, then I have to understand, well, where? Like, where do you do that? Do you do that in my town? Do you do that in a few villages? Do I need other towns, other villages beyond this geography? How do I know that? I go into MLS and I see, are there enough average sales at the relatively average commission rate I can expect to achieve? And the average commission, does that math work? See, Grant, that's where intentionality starts. It doesn't start with, oh, I hear these guys talking about a pipeline, and I hear these guys talking about the breakdown of lead, prospect, and softwares. It doesn't even start there, Grant, right? It starts much more with an intentional North Star of a gross commission income. Then the next step becomes, where in my marketplace is that available? And then what are the boots on the ground, the lowest cost methodologies to begin prospect activities? The creation of a conversation that I must be responsible for until they either leave me, okay, or they continue up to client status where I have a shot. Grant, sorry to take you back there, but that was yesterday's mastermind, which I think is fair game to share here, that if you're not clear about the ultimate sales goal, how can you be intentional about the processes that lead you there? Does that make sense?
It starts with the plan.
So, but the number, it's not even a big plan. It's the number, right? A number, and the more crooked the number, the more you trigger, okay? The more you trigger the subconscious mind, which is where resourcefulness, I believe, lives, okay? You do any training on the mindset, the reason we are, according to Aristotle, I'm in good company, by the way. According to Aristotle, we are teleological, goal-seeking. So if you're a salesperson and you don't know the GCI for you individually, by the way, here's one for all my mastermind members. You individually, as a self-financier of your business, your GCI versus the other business that you're in, which is the agent GCI. Those are two very clear goals that you need written out, because you will go about getting them very different ways if you trust what I'm saying, right? Grant, does that make sense? I mean, you see why I'm hammering even?
It sure does.
Well, even you, because I would ask you, do you really have a very, very clear number? You don't have to tell me that you do or don't, but I'm putting it on you like I am everybody else. I do, and it has been there. And until I hit that, and in fact, we can actually see that beyond the North Star, we think there's the Milky Way. And Laura and I are actually seeing the North Star number that we haven't gotten to yet. We came close last year, and even though she was gone for 9 weeks, that's pretty impressive. We got close, but there's a bigger Milky Way beyond it that we can now help pull through that number. How do I know that? Because as I got intentional about what's possible in my general marketplace, and I looked at the performance of other individuals, including small teams that call themselves individuals, I was able to see, wow, it's even bigger than we thought right under our own nose. So see, that intentionality of that guiding light really helps me say now, and I was just going over this with Egan, now I go back to whom am I marketing, right? To whom? Because these other people that are achieving certain things that are already reality, they're getting a higher average sale. How? They're marketing to and then prospecting in and then conversing with a different avatar or ideal clientele that I am to get there. So, see, everybody wants to hyper-focus on the act of the selling on the phone and the act of the selling in the field. But yet no one wants to say, well, what did you supply those two opportunities with? Who got in there? And again, I'm not going to hurt anybody, because I'm going to leave it at this, that everybody's avatar is different. Everybody's marketplace and averages are different. But it starts with, I'm going to challenge you all to say this. As salespeople, can't you at least be middle of the road? That's the median number. Are you really going to look in the mirror after a pump-up call from me and say, Hey, I'm less than average, everybody. Look at me. I can't wait to wake up every day and be less than average. And then I'm going to go out and I'm going to prospect less than average. It's a real problem, Grant. Right? So you referenced, and I think Patrick referenced luxury. Patrick, come back in here with me, okay? Because it is not necessarily even about that until it's about the North Star first and how luxury or at least average relates to it. Pat, you with me? Grant, you with me? Dino? Anybody that was in my hot seat with me?
Yeah, I'm with him.
Okay. Patrick, you still there? Oh, Pat, hold on. Hold on, I muted Pat.
3 years ago, we wrote down our plan and had the big vision of what we wanted to do. And we hit that number.
Call.
Yeah, hold on. Pat was on mute. I'm going to unmute you, Pat. Let Grant go first, and then Pat goes.
Great. Just want to give you a little bit of a heads up. Paul's business partner, Matthew Reichland, will be the gentleman meeting you at the property and letting you inside.
Hold on.
And
There's Pat doing his job. Go ahead, Grant. Fire away.
Okay, so kind of back to the number in our North Star. When we set that 4 years ago, and we hit it for that year and the following year, I didn't write it down. I didn't visualize and work it. And this is kind of, I'm just being transparent.
Yeah,
I didn't write it down for as visual as it could have been for last year, and we fell short of the number. Not terribly, but we still fell a little short.
Right.
So I think that North Star is supreme important. I mean, it's right up there because you got to know what you're shooting for.
Well, let me explain why I think that happened in my experience.
Tougher. If you don't have it, it's just tougher.
Well, let me explain why I think. What I found by all this studying coming together is that if you are teleological, and you can read the new Psycho-Cybernetics 100 times, and you'll understand why I'm in love with it, because he talks about guided missile theory, okay? Think about a guided missile. Think about the sophistication of weaponry today. They give a guided missile such specific coordinates from far, far away that so much so they're able to fly a bomb through a window. Think about how specific that gets. And then think about all of the elements that weigh upon that trajectory constantly. The wind, the rain, the heat, the humidity, all this. If you've ever seen a long gun shooter before, all the calculations and the math that these guys and gals are able to put together to be long form marks people, right, is incredible. That's what weighs upon the guided missile. Yet in business and in sales, sometimes if you just make it in your head, it's better than zero, because at least you're thinking about it at a subconscious level. But if you get it out of the head, out of the noise, and you put it somewhere physically, I have mine in my mind map, which I have to go look at regularly because of coaching. So it's there. And by the way, I'm making it transparent to all of you mastermind members. So now there's a public accountability to it in a private mastermind group. So there's a lot going on there. Now, the more I make it physical like that, the more precise I'm getting with coordinate correction, Grant, right? The more precise, and the less time in between my revisits to it and my adjustments. Because remember, a guided missile does not take a straight line to its target. It's a whole host of zigzags and course corrections, right? To get to a very specific point depending on the elements. So if you have it programmed clearly as a salesperson, watch what happens. All of a sudden now you become cognizant, and I mean fully cognizant, of a transaction. God bless the people that you served and your ability to serve them, but you become acutely aware of that moment in time. This transaction does not have me on target to reach my North Star. This one is well below the average commission that I programmed in, that is based on at least the median, if not the average, in the marketplace I'm doing business. Why? An alert goes off. Why? Why is that happening to me? Now, without opening up that can of worms, at least for the mastermind members, you know the first place we're going to go to is the marketing. And this is where all these folks over the years that I've coached, my gosh, I'm on this platform, I'm doing this thing, I'm doing that. Why? Why? Do you even know how that helps you get more of the type of business that you need in the form of a conversation, which still has everything to do with follow-up and relationship building once you've acquired it? Or are you just skimming cream all the time? And then all of a sudden you're like, well, geez, I had a great year. Relative to what? To your goal? Are you moving? Are you building? See, Grant, I think it's very clear to me now why it's so critically important in every training opportunity I have, and especially when I give it away to the public like this, to say, if you don't know your GCI target goal, and that's not based in some reality about the pond within which you fish, you have a problem, right? You have a problem. Even if you're doing well, even if you're already a top producer, whatever it is, you got a problem, I think. What do you think?
I agree. I do agree. I had to pause and think about that. I agree, because we had some people outside of our avatar in areas even that we worked with, and it would fall apart. The deal would fall apart after a lot of communications. Well, not a deal like a contract, but just the relationship would fall apart, and you go back and look at it and think, they weren't the avatar.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's tough to cut it off right at the very beginning, but it's becoming clear to us that we're going to need to.
Patrick, hang on.
Far more stress.
Yeah, George, hang on one sec.
Hey.
Patrick, oh, good. I get all you coming in. Hang on, all of you. Tanyelle, George, and Patrick. Hang on, because Egan's on the phone. And we just went through this today, okay? We're not going to expose Chris and I, or if that's Allison, whoever it is, I'm not going to expose names and all this. But this was a real live coaching moment only a couple hours before this, where it's more like a distress call to me as a coach. I'm having a rough week because 3 of these things fell apart. When I asked and investigated sourcing and what they were, the one simple thing I'll say is 2 out of 3 of those were absolutely unequivocally not the guy's ideal client by a lot, for several reasons. Number one, they do not align with where he is moving in the direction. Chris, you can speak for yourself on the numbers and all that and the clarity, but they are definitely not helping him get there in an accelerated fashion. 2 out of 3 of them. One of them was in a very tenuous relationship and situation combined, says that's situationship, okay? Mark that one down. So now that person becomes by default somebody who's going to be very emotionally driven. And Egan, I love you, brother, but patience isn't your thing either. So that avatar by default needs a tremendous amount of hand-holding, nurturing, babying, more like that first-time home buyer who may, like for example, my team, like Courtney Linz, who's young, may be perfect for that. Kate's good for that. There's a lot of people on my team that like that, and they're good at that. But if you keep getting those folks, and that's not your avatar, well, what you can expect is an incongruence. You can expect more conflict than you might otherwise have based on choice of avatar. That's a very intentional move in a direction that's killing you 2 ways. One, a personality conflict that's natural, a natural conflict. 2, it's also way off your financial goal because they're way off the average of the target marketplace within which he's trying to do business. Chris, you want to weigh in on that since I brought it up?
Actually, it's Allison.
Allison, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah. I totally agree with everything you're saying. And when you get these avatars that come in of people, unfortunately, that are a little more on the personal side, oh, this is my friend, or this is my friend so-and-so, you feel compelled, to work with these people, even though they're not your avatar, because you don't want your friends or your friends' friends dissing you in the social scene, because Louisville's very tight-knit. We are not a big city, so word spreads fast.
Yeah. All right, well, hold on. Let me go there. Let me go there, because I found this with... Yeah, but I found this with Brian Grimm. When I first started coaching him. It was interesting because when they came to me, he and Sarah, they were getting a lot of stuff that was not going to be congruent with what they wanted. Okay, all I care about is what do you want?
Right.
and then let me help you build through these proven universal strategies how to get there. So when I looked at their book of business, they were getting that year all referrals, having been a couple years before that, all lead gen. And they didn't like the referrals that they were getting. And I said, well, duh. Go back and look at 2 years ago, what you were spending money on and serving those people. Those people tend to refer a like kind. Other people looking for distressed sales and problem properties, right? So you've just rooted your entire North Star in distress, bloody language, all that stuff. How in the world are you going to get to average if you're blowing the horn for something far less than average? So it starts, and again, Allison, what I would say to you and Chris is, look, there needs to be an agent on the team that you can defer that to, who's going to be good at that stuff, right? Who's going to have more patience.
That's what I was going to say. Right. I don't want to tell these people, no, you're not my avatar.
Well, you wouldn't.
What's the correct way to manage this? And while we don't have agents pass this on to, pick somebody else in the field with a different company, what?
No, go hire somebody immediately. No, exactly what Chris and I talked about, managing his expansion module. He's well at that spot where he needs multiple things, not just an executive sales administrator, but also a 3 at least agents where he can exchange value. He told me today he was good with it. I said, run the ad. Here now you're giving me, more fodder for that conversation. This is something, the very lowest end one of those should have been laid off instantly. Instantly. There's no way he should be doing something like that when his time is better spent working the one that was 3x, not quite 3x, but almost 3x the value in more of an area where he should be. I'd be in there working open houses, a couple times a weekend to try to get my book of business moving in that direction, which is perfectly congruent with where he wants to be. So that's what I was going to say. Hang on there. Let me go to next. I'm going to go to Patrick and then Tanyelle and then George. Go ahead, Pat. What were you going to say? Okay, you're muted again. Hang on, dude. Pat? Okay. Hearing no Pat. Tanyelle, go ahead. What were you going to say?
So I was just going to ask a question.
Shoot.
Does that mean that you guys are that you basically you're turning down business if it's not your avatar or if it's not at the your North Star, the price point that you're targeting?
Absolutely not. I would never recommend you turn down anybody, anything. I think we have a fiduciary. Hold on. Yeah, hold on.
We just haven't
Hold on.
delegated.
Yep, hold on. Mm-hmm. I think, because I want to make a very important point. I think a license is a privilege. And I think if anybody reaches out to us, we have a fiduciary responsibility to serve them as we would the king, the queen, right? You have a absolute, and I did that several times last year. I had a veteran whose house had burnt down, and he was still living in it with his therapy dog. I couldn't wait to do that deal at the very lowest end of what I did last year. I had another gal whose husband had essentially died 3 or 4 times. I couldn't wait to help her, and I would not give up on it. So I think there's a fiduciary responsibility regardless. What I'm talking about as a strategic professional is that over time, you have to ask yourself where that source of business is coming to you. Because if you are spending time, money, and energy to attract it, and it is not going to serve your North Star, I think you're making a strategic mistake. In spite of that, if it still comes to you, serve, okay? But in the long run, as you expand your company, your group, okay? I'm going to go away from team. I hate that word because it means something that could be dangerous. But your group, Tanyelle, should then include people that are newer to the business, are younger, whatever it might be, who are well suited with your guidance to serve that person with you. So they take that young first-time home buyer around. Because at this point in the game, they have less going on. They have more patience naturally for that person. They're empathetic because they're closer in life to what that person's situation is. That's what I'm suggesting. Does that help? Clarify?
Yep.
Cool. Awesome.
That's clear.
Georgie, go ahead, because I'm in the OT.
Hey, yeah, I was just going to state what you guys were finished going on about, that I don't turn down stuff because I'm dual licensed. I deal with 2 states, and I'm actually further up north now dealing with more Michigan and lake stuff. But I still don't turn down because I still get a lot of business down a little further south in Indiana.
Yep.
But I try to avoid it. I don't market down there anymore like I used to because the stress of driving down there and trying to find properties down there and quite frankly, not knowing the market. I don't know if a house just popped up on the market without an MLS or relationships with other agents for me.
Yeah. Well, good for you, George. I mean, I think it's a tough decision to make because we all want the cash flow. So we all tend to just run after the cash flow. But ultimately, you heard Grant today talking about the intentionality improving in his business, and it just doesn't happen overnight. So I think, again, I know Grant would have no argument, the nicest guy in the world, and he would serve anybody too. But what he's talking about is a business that's much more intentional, and it's bringing something that allows him to be more patient for process and move in the direction of people that really serve both means, right? One, he can serve the people, but they can also serve his North Star better too. I think that just takes time, George. But I do think at some point in time we have to be bold enough to say no and give it away, still being fiduciary like I suggested, right? So in your case, physically and geographically, that's even a bigger deal. I think you need a strategic relationship immediately. If you're driving too far outside your spot, and remember, we're in an inventory-driven business, listings first, I think you're killing yourself. And I think that's really slowing down the potential to grow your business by just running all over the place. By the way, I'll plead guilty to that. I used to call my marketplace Cape Cod. Well, my goodness gracious, I can get to Boston downtown faster than I could go to tip to tail on Cape Cod. So you have to understand the limitations of geography as it relates to that North Star. Where is the smallest area within which that is a viable goal to achieve? That's what I would say. So. Yeah. All right, everybody, listen, I'm in an OT, and I've got to get rolling here because life goes on for me as an agent. I have to go do a walkthrough with somebody. So you rock. Good contribution here today. For all you Americans, happy rest of the 4th of July weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Be safe and try this up. Position yourselves properly. Be confident in that. All right, you got it. Take care, everybody. Thank you online.
Thank you.
All of you that watched online, thank you, thank you, thank you.